thanks for joining me. This is our second podcast.
It is.
Already.
Yeah.
We did one online. That was part of Constructive Excellence. But now this is, the education one. And when I was looking for guests, I needed to reach out to you too because of, the amazing work that you're doing at Constructive Futures. But I'm going to hand it over to you guys. Just a quick introduction of who you are and what you do.
Thank you. After you, Nat.
Thanks. I'm Natalie Johnston. I'm founder and director at Southgate and Sarabia Architects and founder and director at Constructive Futures with Jen. So I've been in the industry for 35 years. A long time. But I actually love what I do. And I think it's really important as part of my job that we give back to the sector. So I've been a tutor and lecturer at Leeds Beckett University for 23 years. Got a lecture this afternoon. And I'm a Part 3 examiner for the RIBA, so professional Part 3 examiner. I think it's just so important to engage with the students and give them every opportunity. And I think that's one of the reasons why we set up Constructive Futures was to champion those kids, those underdogs who don't have those opportunities, who come from diverse backgrounds and, they might be come from a single parent family or whatever, and they don't have the same opportunities or think, I can't go to university, I'm not clever enough or whatever. And just to give them that support and that strength and that, allow them to follow the dreams. Why shouldn't they have the same opportunities as all the other kids? So that's why we started, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I'm Jenny Kitchen. I'm founder of Building Rapport, which is a business consultancy service, and have worked in the industry for about 12 years, following a career in business development, sales, management, etc. And working in the built environment early doors, it was really apparent, certainly 12 years ago, which is still, gone by in the blink of an eye, that as such a male-dominated industry, what were the kind of activities, events and influences I could have to try and change that? Yeah. And always been passionate about giving back to young people and helping young people with careers advice that was never there when I was at school. So tackling equality, diversity, inclusivity, looking at workplace culture, in my business, thinking about how SMEs can attract more females into their business and more diversity into their business. And when you couple that with the massive skills gap that we've got, the huge crisis that we have in our industry, it just made sense for Natalie and I to set Constructive Futures up so that we could both follow our passions of supporting young people to help address these issues. And a lot of that is also educating businesses in changing their mindset about the way that they do recruit and how they can engage with young people in the right ways, so that they're motivating, so that they're inspiring, because we need to attract them, but then we need to retain them. We've got such a skill shortage and young people are the future of our industry. So Constructive Futures platform allows public and private sectors to come along, talk to young people, inspire them, motivate them. We're doing all that. We've got that, nailed. What we need now is for the employers to step up and for the employers to help us to place these students.
So it's a nice story. You obviously both had jobs, normal jobs as we call it, day jobs. Yep. We've all got our day jobs.
Yep.
But then you had a joint mission then. Basically, there was not enough, exactly what you spoke about, there wasn't enough of that happening, whether it's representation, and you've obviously got yourself together and thought you can make an impact. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is when you're, should we call it a side hustle?
Yeah, absolutely, I was side hustle.
Shall we get together and try and change it? Yeah. So what did that look like? How did you kind of come together, you two, to decide we want to try and make a change?
We'd worked together and collaborated on projects and networking, etc. And you're just together in the industry. And I think
we found our tribe in each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're so different in so many ways, but have our core values and our ethics and what we believe in absolutely matches. And I think when you find somebody like that, that's when magic happens.
Absolutely.
And we both have different ideas and different approaches, which when we come together, it's like, oh wow, this can only succeed.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's true. Like what you said, you meet people, don't you? And you just link,
and it happens for a reason. People go, oh, you're really lucky. It's like, you make your own luck. By putting yourself out there, by putting yourself in that position, you're then exposing yourself to opportunities. And I think that's what we're trying to do is give those opportunities to those students who wouldn't have done that. And without me and Jen, we were already volunteering for a similar organisation. But for us, it's not about us taking the social value. Yeah, we both deliver projects where it's always good to give back. But our passion is not born out of we have to deliver social value. It's actually born out of supporting the students, giving them the right opportunities, giving them meaningful work experience. That's what's really important. And as Jen said, it's educating the employers so they understand, right, this is our responsibility. A really good example of this, we work with, I'll name names because they were brilliant. One of our members, Sol Acoustics, they'd taken on a student from Runshaw College, and the student didn't want to do acoustics. They basically sponsored the sponsored student of the month, and this student was a brilliant student, so they got a week of work experience with Sol Acoustics. The guy from Sol Acoustics went to pick this guy up from the train station every day, brought him to the office. And I think this student wanted to be an architect or whatever. So it's hard when you don't want to, you're doing something. It's great because he got work experience, but it wasn't what in the subject he wanted to do. And after a couple of days of saying, this is acoustics, this is what we do, all interesting, I think Sol turned around and said, this is not your passion, is it? And the student said, no, it's not. So he said, what can we do to help? So they went through, they helped him put his CV together. They went through mock interviews and they said, is there any jobs that you're looking at? And he said, actually, there's working for a house builder. So Sol supported the student and the week of work experience. This helped him submit the application form and he got that job. So without that meaningful work, he could have just the team could have just let him, struggle on and just be bored and do a week of something that he wasn't that interested in. But actually, that meaningful work experience allowed that student that time, that support, that one-to-one of supporting him with his CV and giving him the hands-on tips for him to then go out and get a full-time job.
So it's making a bit of sense now. So that's a great example, actually, of a potential employer helping them.
Yeah.
So you saw this, or you've seen this, and you're now trying to do this on a bigger scale then. Yeah. So to think, if that can happen once, it can happen 100 different times.
Yeah.
Yes.
And is that kind of the mission then behind what Constructive Futures is? Is it giving people the opportunity to see work before they get there?
It's an opportunity. We're giving them the tools for them to go out and get their own jobs. So we don't go out and find them jobs. That's not what it's about. But we're giving them the tools for them to be able to go out in industry, to be work ready. A lot of the students, what we're finding is the students who are sort of year 12, 13, who came, they started high school, gone through puberty, really struggling with anxiety and stuff.
Because 4 years ago, they missed out on so much social interaction. And we're seeing it now in like the A-levels, T-level students who are maybe less mature than they should be, very socially awkward, don't really want to ever use a phone. They want to text you every 2 minutes instead. So a lot of what we do is, how can we help to get you work ready? So yes, we're inspiring, we're motivating, we're introducing them to all of these disciplines and raising their awareness of wow, look at all of these jobs. But at the same time, we're building confidence. We're helping them with CVs and mock interviews. We're saying that it's okay if you are feeling anxious, if you suffer with anxiety, if you have ADHD, if you're diagnosed with autism, we will cater for everybody's needs and find you a mentor that will help you. We've supported nearly 2,000 students. So we can't give 2,000 students a job. But as Natalie said, we help them open doors. We give them the tools so that they can help themselves.
Yeah.
And those students that are willing to put in the effort, come to some of our events, meet professionals, talk to people whilst they're there. They're the ones that are going to stand out from the crowd, and they're the ones that are going to get the work experience and the jobs.
Yeah.
So everything we do is trying to encourage more students to do the same.
I've been with you guys. I've been out on your events. I've been involved as a mentor and helping them, and it is absolutely incredible. Like giving these guys the opportunity to go out and do something that they wouldn't usually do. I was with a couple of guys last year. We're just going around, different employers, and it was so lovely to see. But as well as giving these people experience, you're also giving underrepresented people the opportunity as well. And you've got a great story, haven't you, of a girl who's an architect. Just talk to us a little bit more about some good examples that you've done.
Landscape architect and an engineer who the engineer's recently got a job. The landscape architect's been in her job about a year now, hasn't she?
Yeah, part of the tutoring that I do, I'd gone into Leeds Beckett University and we had a joint module, but we did a module with the landscape architect. So any opportunity, I get to talk about constructive futures or the construction industry, and I give every single, for the last God knows how many years, if you need a hand with your CV, or I can't give you, don't ask for a job, don't apply for a job because I can't give you a job. But I always give everybody my email address. Just contact me if you need a hand, if you're struggling. Just contact me. And Beth, who is an amazing young lady, I actually met her in the lift as we were going up to the session. And I said, "Oh, what floor is it?" Because I don't go into the studio very often. She went, "Oh, it's the 5th floor." I said, "Oh, I'm there for the architecture." She said, "Oh, you're doing the crit?" I was like, "Yeah." She went, "Oh, be kind." I was like, "Oh, of course." And at the end, I think it was that evening, she sent me an email saying, "I'm highly dyslexic. Never thought I'd go to university. That was never her plan." She worked in hospitality for 10 years, and then in COVID, she got furloughed and she thought, this is my opportunity to do something I'm passionate about. So she went to university. She was doing a degree in landscape architecture. In the January, she did a week of work experience with a landscape architect in Leeds, and she spent the full week basically Googling wildflower seed mix. So that was not interesting to her. That was not what she thought.
That was not a useful week
that wasn't a useful week of work experience. So she was like, "Oh, I don't want to do this. This is not for me." And can you imagine going home saying to your partner, "By the way, I've just spent 30 grand on my course. I've not earned anything for it's probably 100 grand's worth of salary and costs that she's incurred." And then she's going back home to go, "I don't want to do this anymore." And for us, it's like, that's one person who we could lose out of the industry. So I said, "Right, let's meet for a coffee." We met for a coffee, and she went, I just don't know what to do. I went, "Well, what do you want to do?" She went, "I want to be working with people. I want to be creative. I want to, and all the things that you would expect a landscape architect to do." I said, "What did you do in your old job?" "Well, it was a bit of marketing, this." I went, "Have you thought about doing business development in the construction industry?" She was like, "Oh yeah." I said, "All those transferable skills, that's what you do in hospitality." And then I talked about social value. I said, "Have you thought about engaging, working for somebody as a social value manager?" She was like, "Oh my God, that'd be amazing." So we introduced her to people in the industry, women in property, etc. I said, We'll take you down that road. However, we want to introduce you to some amazing landscape architects. So big shout out to Lucy Wiggins and Simon Hall from PWP. They are phenomenal. And you'll know Lucy because she was at
UK
Reef with us last year and the year before. Well, she's been there each year with us. And basically we linked Beth with Lucy. So Lucy was her mentor. She spent 3 days at UK Reef walking around with her. And then off the back of that, she then offered her a 10-week work placement in her practice. And then at the end of that, she offered her a full-time job. Now, not as a landscape architect, but as a garden designer. And Beth, actually, that's what Beth wanted to do. She realised after that placement, she wanted to be a garden designer. And I can remember having a coffee with Lucy and she was like, oh my God, Beth's joined us full time, but not as a landscape architect, as a garden designer. No one ever wants to be a garden designer. So it was brilliant because as an employer, they then got the right candidate who was passionate about garden design, and Beth got the right work placement.
Yeah.
And as a practice, again, this comes back down to it. They have then supported her a couple of days a week doing all the social value side of things. So she's getting the best of both worlds. So she's doing something that she's passionate about. She's doing the part of the job that she really wants to do, and she's getting that social value experience. So that for us, that's a win-win.
It's an incredible story. I mean, that's one example, right?
Yeah.
But how many then of that scenario is happening? How many are we missing out on?
Yeah.
Not
one
enough,
of the other people on the podcast has talked about the cost of entry to construction is phenomenal, and it's sometimes too high. So especially like building surveyors, architecture, you go on long courses. You know, architecture, what is it, 7 years?
7 years,
so you go 7 years, you get 5 years in, especially at that age.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what I want to do now, right? I'm 38. So imagine being that young, 20 grand in, and you think this isn't right. And so we have this blocker, don't we? That almost people go, I'm not willing to do that. We could have lost that one person coming into the industry.
Absolutely.
So we have this high ceiling of letting people, it's like a high entry point. So I want to talk stats because I know we've just mentioned stats before. We must lose so many people, and we talk all the time, don't we, about we need more people in construction, we need more work, we need more architecture. But half of the battle is our own way of bringing people in.
Yeah.
And if you're not caught that one person there on her journey, she'd be gone doing something completely different.
She'd have gone back to hospitality, you know, and what a great person, you know, she'd succeed in any sector, but we'd have lost her out of our sector.
100%.
And
so
that's what we're trying
there's one. So what are the numbers? What are the numbers, Jenny, in terms of, give us the numbers in terms of stats of how bad it is.
Okay, so Building Magazine recently reported that we need 280,000 construction workers by 2028 to meet demand.
Okay.
So that's 70,000 a year.
Yeah.
MAPS estimates that around 366,000 pupils finish their compulsory education each year. So 20% of that, which is what we need, is 73,200. So the real challenge basically is ours, is the industry's, is the employer's challenge to encourage that 20% to enter our industry. About 35% of those school leavers will go to university for a minimum of 3 years. So that leaves about 25,500 age 16 plus to capitalise on with other upskilling routes.
Okay.
So like you said, the cost to entry for university degrees might be very off-putting. So we've got, 25,500 age 16 plus that we need to support with good work experience to attract them into our industry via other routes, via T-level, via apprenticeships, show them that there are other ways and that we're willing to support these young people into our industry and they don't have to go to university and think about getting in debt.
Yeah.
And actually, we're massive advocates of apprenticeships. We're both T-level ambassadors. But the struggle is to pass a T-level qualification, you must complete 9 weeks work experience. And because T-levels are becoming increasingly popular, they're phasing out BTECs, all of these students are going to struggle if businesses can't offer them the 9 weeks. We set Constructive Futures up after already working with Runshaw College for nearly 2 years. and supporting them. So we know their first year students, we worked with them in their second year. Some of them have gone on to university, some of them are in apprenticeships, some of them are in full-time jobs. We're now working with the new year ones. So we've built a really good relationship with Runshaw College, and we can see the benefit of everything that we've done with them through bringing in guest speakers, taking the students on site visits, helping them with work experience. We can see that it's a success. We know that what we've created is really powerful because it works, because Runshaw College cohort has increased, I think, threefold for their T-level intake, and they received Ofsted Excellent, and they are the best performing T-level college in the whole of the UK. So the evidence is there. Yeah. Yes, they've got amazing staff, and Stuart Hyde, who's their course leader, is a phenomenal teacher. Yeah. He supports Constructive Futures. We asked him to be our NED so that we can run all of our activities and plans through him from a teacher's point of view. And he's brilliant. You know, and not every college has a Stuart, yeah, who's worked in industry before as well, which is also so important.
And he, you know, Stuart, again, he put something on LinkedIn, can anybody help me with this? And I was like, yeah, what do you want? You know, and that's how it started. It was a conversation on LinkedIn. But if I hadn't have done that, you know, would be... That's the thing, is we all need to put our hand, you know, our head above the parapet and go, actually, what do you need? You know, that there's so many great people that we work with, like yourselves. You know, we've got so many great ambassadors who support us, who do that, but we need more. You know, we've got like a niche in sort of Nottingham, Sheffield, Manchester, Leeds, sort of in the northeast. But we need to expand that, and we've got sort of associates in London with Audley. But you know, we want to do more. We've worked in Wales with the RICS. And that's for us. It's about connecting all these people together, like we did with yourself with Constructing Excellence, RIBA, RICS, SIBSI. FBE, you know, it's that joined up thinking that's going to start us to get places, and that's what we need to do to upscale it. Yeah. We need more people on board to support us, and that comes down to the employers. We need employers to say, yeah, we'll sign up to work experience and supporting these T-level students. If they don't get the 45 days experience in practice, they will fail the course, you know. So then they're going to go bit disheartened and then leave. Yeah. And that's what we're battling with, is to try and get as many people proper good work experience, which will sustain them and keep them in the industry.
Yeah. We've got, the stats are quite incredible, and it's a lot. It's a real lot, and the challenge is whether we can actually fulfil that. You know, and then obviously we've got these amazing announcements from government. We're going to build 75 million new houses. It's like, well, we've got no one to build them.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Absolutely.
It's a real challenge. And I've been on the ground with you guys for a long time, and yes, there's amazing work done by colleges, which is a given. That's a college. There's amazing work done by schools, which is a given because it's a school. Yeah. But outside of that, it's tumbleweed about who's doing things. And you guys have come along, all swinging, all dancing, and actually you got my attention massively, because you're like, you know, I'm sure there's others out there. I'm not saying there isn't, but you've made such a great impression of linking education and construction together that, you know, you've created something amazing. And it's about, is there other organisations doing that? And
so just taking a step back there, Dan, when you talk about schools as well, our issue is the high performing schools have got great careers professionals as part of their teams. So it's dead easy to get into the Ofsted outstanding schools. What we struggle with is getting into the hard to reach schools, because they're firefighting every day. You know, every day is a struggle, whether because it's funding, whether it's lack of staff, or just because the type of students that they're supporting. So when we say, can we come in and talk to your students? Oh, we haven't got time, you know, because they're, and I totally get it. But these are the kids that need our support most, because, they've got to firefight, they've got to manage everything that happens within the school. But there's some really good kids in there which are missing out on opportunities because the school are busy doing other stuff. So that's what this is, I suppose, a plea to any school. If you want us to come in and help, we can set up give us a hall, give us the students, bring year 7, 8, 9, 10. Each hour or whatever, we can fill a room with professionals to come and talk about construction industry. We can set up workshops or whatever. All we need is a day and a hall and the students to come. That's what we find is the hardest. Some schools, like my daughter's school, they are phenomenal. Ofsted outstanding. It's they're really proactive and the students are great, etc. So that's dead easy. We're not bothered. Yeah. And again, we don't discriminate. We still want the A-star students because we need those in our industry. But we want to help the underdogs. We want to champion those people who don't have that cheerleader going, you've got this, you can do that. Yeah. That's what it's about. Yeah. That's what we're passionate about.
The big challenge of getting people in, I did a talk, I did a STEM ambassador day. I went into a school talking about careers in construction, and there was 50 kids in total. I think we interviewed them, and from 50, I think one wanted to be an architect. The rest was the usual, I want to be a policeman, I want to be a YouTuber,
influencer.
So there was no desire for it. And these were about 11, 12, so it was like, right, okay, there's no desire for it. So I'm, as you've probably seen, I'm working with a company at the moment called Happy Hub, which is all on the mental health and well-being. Yep. And I did a post the other day, I don't know if you'd seen it, on LinkedIn. In the morning, I was talking to children about getting into construction. And in the afternoon, we're talking about suicide in construction. Yeah. There's such a weird disconnect here. So what desire do they have to get into an industry where people are taking their own lives? And no one talks about that piece. Yeah. We've got this pandemic of no workers coming in, and we've got this pandemic of what an awful place to be. Yeah, that is something that is just it blew my mind. I actually finished the day and like, what am I doing here? Like, even though I'm trying to help on all angles, there's a real disconnect. And Steve Anderson, that runs Happy Hub, he's very clever with what he's built. He came from the construction side. Yeah. So he's built it. But what he's saying is that when we go in and do talks to schools, sometimes it's not registering. People learn in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Construction people don't learn in classrooms. No. They learn with their hands. Yeah. And what you do is you have this system where we bring people through. They don't know what to do. They get to 15, 16, and they're like, tell you what, go get a job go get a trade. Go get a trade or go do something in construction because they'll have you. Yeah. And that is the reality. Yeah. So the reason we don't get people in is because we have this almost feeling of getting into constructions for the back end of people. If you're not doing top end architecture or lawyer, anyone can fall into construction. And I guess I'm a part of that. Is you don't want to say it fell into construction, and that's a challenge, So what is your thoughts? What is your thoughts on that?
It's a big stereotype that we're trying to smash, and for us, it starts with having role models, visible role models. So there is no desire from these young kids to move into our sector right now because they either think it's just men in muddy boots and a construction site, or quite frankly, it's never even entered their thoughts, construction, they're not aware of it at all, full stop. So by having role models, we can show these children that there are people that look like them doing this role. If we can excite and engage and motivate and talk about our jobs more openly, don't be scared to tell them about your salary. Why are people so secretive about what they're earning? Don't be scared. You've earned that. You've got to where you are because you've earned it, and let these kids know what the potential is. And it's that stereotype of moving away. Yes, we don't want construction to be the last choice, or working in our sector to be because you're not academically brilliant or you've not passed your GCSEs. We want to flip that narrative so that job in property and construction and the built environment is everybody's first choice, because they can see females represented, they can see every underrepresented community in the sector, whether it's neurodiversity, whether it's race, ability, gender, etc. And we can't do that unless we show them the role models. And those role models need to be young, vibrant, enthusiastic, passionate, just like us. And moving away from when we work with schools, how many careers fairs have you been to that you think, actually, was that worthwhile? Did the students get anything out of that?
Yeah.
Did the employer get anything out of that? Yes, it's an easy thing to do, to fill a room with banners, etc., and students to go around and take all of the freebies. But actually, what we found through our experience and our main success is, like you said, students learn in very different ways, especially if they're interested in sight and they want to be on the tools. They need to learn with their hands. So give us permission to take those students out of school, off curriculum, and into the work environment, because all of a sudden they think differently, they switch on, they're more engaged, they're actually listening, the hoods are down, the coats are off, they actually want to be there, they appreciate the opportunity, and they're not sheltered in the comfort of the classroom where they might usually misbehave.
We got approached by a school in Wakefield. It was an open day at the feeder college, and they said, we don't want any students that are not going to achieve fives, or if they've got any behavioural issues, or they've been, had a bad mark against them. So there was 13 boys. Was it 13 boys?
Yep.
So they said, if we don't do something with them, they're just not going to turn up for the day. So they're just going to lose, they're going to be absent from school. So I think within a week, we'd arranged an event in Wakefield, hadn't we, with Morgan Sindel.
And civic engineers at Rutland Mill.
And we got Charlie Beach, the rugby player, to come and do a motivational speech and stuff. So we got them on site, we got them in the hard hats and stuff. And obviously, being young boys, we're like knocking each other on the head with the hats. And the site manager was like, pack it in, you're on site, you do as I say. It was that reality. Charlie spoke to them and said, you've got 15 weeks to your GCSEs, it's your opportunity now to make a difference, and the tutor who sort of arranged it was like, he was blown away just by the integration and the realization that these kids were like, actually, we could do so. We don't have to be annoying and just mess about and stuff. Actually, if we put a little bit of hard work in, we can achieve something. We can then go on to do an apprenticeship, so we got young apprentices in to talk to them about opportunities within the construction industry. And I'd like to think we made a real difference on that day. Also, last week we did an event with Craven College at Ultimate Interiors. So the week before, what we tend to do is go in and talk to the students so we manage their expectations, so they know what to expect, especially if they're neurodivergent. We need to be able to manage their expectations. So we've gone in, all of them, hoods up, sort of miserable, not engaged, like, oh God, this is a hard one.
What time's lunch?
And there was literally there was a classroom probably about this size, and it was literally chocker with students, and one or two put the hand up and engaged. But you take them out of that classroom environment, put them in a professional settings. We had a young panel discussion. We had different workshops and stuff. And honestly, the feedback was phenomenal, wasn't it, Jen?
Yeah. They suddenly learn in a different way. And I think because we'd met them the week before and reminded them, this is a brilliant opportunity. You could find yourself some work experience from the professionals that are in the room. It's all about, unfortunately, still those first impressions. So if you're leaning in, and you're acting professional, you'll be taken more seriously. And if you engage and listen, it's a really good opportunity for you to learn so much more, to really be upskilled. And they did, and they were great. There were absolutely no behavioural issues whatsoever. They were all perfect examples for the college. They asked questions. They got involved in workshops. We had a tour of the showroom at Ultima. We also went across the road and visited J. Carey, a joinery manufacturers, and looked around their workshop and spoke to their apprentices. And we heard from the managing director, Jonathan Tillotson, some of the joiners who joined him as apprentices and were now fully qualified, maybe 5 years experience, they were earning upwards of 70, 80 grand a year. as a joiner, and we had 8 joinery students with us from Craven. So all of a sudden they were all over that. They were like, whoa, so I can come and work here? Can I have some work experience? When can I come in? So, you suddenly, and they're working up with big familiar brands. They work with Arsenal Football Club, Liverpool Football Club. They did the refit of TikTok's headquarters in London. So you suddenly start talking about these big, exciting projects that they could work on, whether it is as an electrician, as a joiner, as a painter, decorator, or an architect in a professional services, a surveyor, etc. Just talking more openly about these brands that are familiar to students also is a really clever way to get them excited and motivated. Yeah. Because, we all have these building assets, all of these big brands, all of these retailers that they engage with probably daily, all have their own building assets that they need to look after. So as well as having an influence on energy management, climate change, sustainability, they could end up working with some of these big brands that they engage with all of the time. Yeah. So it was really relatable for them, going to a local employer, being hosted in a beautiful interior design showroom where people are actively working was inspiring enough for the students to step out of college into this beautiful place where they could potentially work. Then to hear from all of the professionals that were there on the day, and then to go and see the joinery place was just, they absolutely loved it. And our main goal for the day was to raise expectations, and for some of the students that might have been on the foundation courses and really weren't sure what on earth they wanted to do next, they were probably happy if they could go work with a little family-owned business down the road and be a plumber. And that's brilliant. That is absolutely fantastic. But some of those students now are raising the bar and thinking, actually, what could I do next? If I stayed in education a bit longer, or if I got some really good work experience and spent, 2 weeks there, 2 weeks there, 2 weeks there, and made my CV look really impressive, what kind of degree apprenticeship could I get now? So if we can raise expectations and get those students to just think a bit bigger about what's possible for them, instead of putting their self-limiting beliefs on themselves, then that's our job done.
Seems like that's the formula.
Yeah.
You've got it, haven't you? You've got it, you've seen it work.
Yeah.
And, we've got the certificate to say this works. Where our then biggest challenges, which I think is where you guys come in, it's how we replicate this model.
Yeah.
Because most schools would love that. Mm-hmm. They would love the ability to send students that are not, they're not learning in that environment to go, right, we have another angle for you. But there isn't a million of you two. No. There's just you two and one Constructive Futures with a bit of support here and there. You almost need, this model to be replicated across the UK, don't you? So they have access. Because then all of a sudden you can take pupils out. And what age can you start giving them experience from? We've
had students with us who've been 14.
14, which,
I mean, 16 plus just makes life a little bit easier because they're a bit more independent. If they're 14, we tend to have a member of staff with us, unless they're, we know them, family, friends sort of thing, so they can trust us. Otherwise, it's...
If they're younger than 16, they need a parent or a carer or a teacher with them.
Yeah, of course.
And to be honest, most of the time, if we've got a lot of students coming from one school, they will bring a teacher with them. It helps us with our safeguarding measures. It helps us just having more adults in the room anyway.
Yeah.
And to be honest, if we could have a training day for all of the teachers to do the same with them, that would be amazing. Because if we can educate the teachers and the careers advice about all of these amazing roles that we have, it's like teaching a man to fish, isn't it? If they understand the opportunity within our sector, then they're the champion of construction within their school already, and they understand what all of the jobs are.
Schools then, a normal school, that's a primary school, secondary school, kids are going from 11 to 15. Do you have an option for them? So could you go in and replicate what you're doing with colleges with these?
We're already doing that. So we've been into the Murfield Grammar, Garforth Academy, various schools. We went into the Robert Ogden
School in Rotherham.
Rotherham, that's a special educational needs school for autistic students. So we're talking to them to look at how we can do an event for SEND students, which would be phenomenal. So we've got, again, we work with, because we're creatives, 20% of the workforce are neurodivergent. And in the creative industries, that goes up to about 40%, I think. So we're surrounded with amazing people who get and understand people with ADHD, dyslexia, autism, etc. So we'd love to do an event where we can, so it's not just for, this school or that, actually do an event. We take the students out of off curriculum, take them into an environment, in a professional environment, introduce them to all the amazing consultants and stuff.
Okay, and this can be done. So this can be targeted at primary, secondary schools.
It can be anything.
Okay.
And what we want to express is, for many projects, if we're doing a big planning application, we would do community engagement, community consultation. So we'd hire out a hall. So you're doing a planning application for a big residential housing scheme or whatever. You'd hire out a hall. You'd get the kids to come in and do a workshop and do master planning and stuff. And you'd show them the 3D model, etc., etc. We do that as part of our day job. That's what we do as architects, as consultants, as professionals. So actually, why not engage with projects and employers? So if a school is commissioning a new wing or a new classroom or an extension or whatever, engage with us, with the supply chain, and let's go and do these events. This is the sort of thing we need employers or the government or the local authorities to say, right, actually, let's talk about social value for a second. It's not just a case of, we've sponsored the local football team £500. That's brilliant for the local football team, but it doesn't make them run any faster and it doesn't make them score any more goals. I've done that. I sponsored my daughter's team. I know that for a fact. However, £500 for a coffee morning, sponsor, £500, £1,000 for a coffee morning, where we can then bring a load of consultants together, get the students off the classroom into a professional work environment, have a panel discussion of young people who are relevant, who look like them, from their culture, from their background or whatever, to say, actually, I was you, however many years ago, 2-3 years ago, whatever. All of a sudden they can see, we did an event, we did a coffee morning at, I think it was Education Estates, and it was all about neurodiversity. And everybody on the panel was neurodivergent. And actually, it was a phenomenal event. And, the amount of people who came and talked to us afterwards going, oh, God, I didn't realise, and it's because it's all over TikTok, so we do talk about it, but we don't talk about it enough in the profession. Yeah. And I think that's what we need to do. We work with everybody, all the schools and colleges, etc. Universities are a bit easier because obviously they're over 18, and we can invite those students to come and tell their story about what they're doing. But we need to get into more schools to talk to more people. Yeah. One thing that we have found is, we'll talk to people and they go, well, you've done 15 different days, 15 schools we've been into, which is fantastic. But going into one school for 1 hour is not going to make a difference. If you went into one school and had 15 touch points with that school, that would make a huge difference. Yeah. So that's what we want to do. It's about getting people to buy in to support a school. Yeah. So then they can champion construction in that school, and then as part of their supply chain, bring them in to support them with that school. Yeah. So all of a sudden that school has then got a point of contact for for construction. Yeah. What we then want is, when you're procuring schools, hospitals, any public procured projects, have on the agenda social value. How do we get meaningful work experience from the supply chain, designers, construction, project managers, cost consultants or whatever? How do we get all the supply chain to buy into meaningful social value? So whether it's sponsoring an event or actually allowing us to come and host events with them. We've worked with modular contractors. They've got their building the buildings in Hull or Driffield or wherever, how do they bring social value to Bradford? You know, because all their supply chain is their supply chain, wherever that is, closer to them. All their workforce are based in Hull or wherever they're based. So what are they doing to bring social value if they were doing a project in Bradford?
You're creating a vehicle, aren't you, for them to tap into?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I love it all. I think, honestly, it's amazing. And, you know, like everything that you've done, UK Reef, tapping into like UK Reef, you know, you go there's all these professional, you know, people, but, you know, and for you to then be bringing students is just amazing. So the mission's massive. It's probably become bigger than your jobs. Let's not say that if people at the jobs are listening. But you've got a huge purpose. I know there's you two, but you've got support of others.
Yes.
Yep.
How are you growing this? What's the next phase for Constructive Futures?
We need funding. We're looking to identify pots of funding that we can tap into, because without that, we can't grow. We need to, once we have some funding, we can replicate what we've done at Runshaw College. We can replicate what we've done in the areas where we've worked so far. We need to employ. We need to, make sure we've got all the right supportive systems in place to support that growth, and we can't do that without investment.
Okay.
So today it's come from very generous private sector sponsors, and literally in our first year we've done everything on a shoestring. You know, Natalie and I give our time completely for free, and we've managed to raise enough sponsorship to cover things like our insurance and to get PPE for our students. It's really important that our events are always free for students. We don't ever want cost to be a barrier. So providing breakfast, providing lunch, subsidising transport if that's necessary. You know, there are a lot of costs associated with it. So funding is the next challenge and the next piece of work that we need to do really to
allow
grow.
you to grow, because like you say, you've built the model, you know the model works, we know the feedback, but obviously it's now just replicating you guys over and over again, innit?
And we just need, you know, those businesses who are like-minded, who want to champion what we do, who recognise, look at this skills gap, look at, you know, maybe look inwardly at themselves, at their own staff, at their own culture, at their own board, and is their board representative of the working community? Actually, join our mission and let's change it together.
Yeah.
And, you know, talking about experiences with employers, I think it's important that we talk about mindset and changing the mindset of some of those employers as well. As much as we've had some really good experiences of work experience with our students that have led on to incredible things, there are still those that aren't getting great work experience. You know, just last week I heard a story about a young girl, the only female on her engineering course. She went for an interview with a HVAC company, really excited about going for it. When she walked through the door, she got a round of applause from all of the staff because she'd managed to park her car well.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah.
And if that mindset doesn't change, she got offered the job. She still went through with the interview, you know, smashed it, got offered the job, but politely declined it because she recognised that their culture wasn't right for her.
Immediately,
And brilliant that she knew that she felt powerful enough that
And
she
knew
could
her
turn
worth
it down
as
and
well.
knew her worth. Because just as much as we're encouraging students to enter our industry, if that culture isn't right, we're not going to retain them.
Yeah.
If they have a bad experience, we will lose them from our industry. But equally, we tell our students, if that employer is not right, you talk with your feet, because there are plenty out there that are doing it right, that have brilliant workplace cultures, that embrace everybody, that will not tolerate any bad behaviour. So for us, looking at working with more of those private sector sponsors that share those values, that do take on work experience, that will take on apprenticeships, that will support young people. And that's really important when we put our events together, that the professionals in the room, you know, can offer those students work experience placements. So they're not just there to tick a box. They actively want to, yes, come and do some work experience. Yes, we recruit apprentices. We've got a couple of grad roles, whatever it is. You know, how many of us have been to the typical careers fair? You know, think about who you send to those careers fairs. Are they young themselves? Do they actually want to be there themselves? Are they enthusiastic? If not, then we're not setting that right first impression for the students as well. And we're not going to attract them unless we send our young people to those types of events, which is why we have our young role model panel sessions. We just need to, keep plugging that gap between how we're exciting and motivating and, inspiring them to them being hired. Yeah.
This has been amazing. We could talk for days. We're going to have to get you back on for a season, for an episode 2, aren't we? Look, we'll close out, but socials, where can people reach out to you? Where can they find you?
On LinkedIn. Constructive Futures on LinkedIn. We do have an Insta account at Constructive Futures, which is pretty rubbish at the moment. That's also another priority. When you've got so much to do.
It's hard work.
Once we get some funding, we can get our socials exactly where we want them to be, because we know that's key.
But LinkedIn is where it's
LinkedIn is where it's at right now.
Yeah. Or if you want to contact Jenny or myself on LinkedIn or whatever, our contact details.
Well, look, I love it all. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.